Anytime I visit someplace new, I like to take a look at the local haunted legends. I love to study history, and ghost stories add an interesting level of history and excitement to buildings and locations in a town. Our family recently took a trip to Crater Lake to do some hiking and enjoy the views, so I looked into its history as well, and I'll be posting two videos about haunted Crater Lake. This one is about the lodge itself. Then the next one will be about the lore and legends surrounding the entire Crater Lake Park. In this video, I'll be sharing the ghost stories associated with Crater Lake Lodge and digging in to see if there's any documentation or validity behind those stories. Join me as we explore Crater Lake Lodge. Welcome to Investigating the Northwest. This channel is dedicated to exploring the mysterious, haunted, and historical of the Pacific Northwest. If there's any haunted location that you would like me to visit and investigate to dig into the history of those stories, then certainly let me know in the comments below. The history of this gorgeous building is really fascinating. Crater Lake Lodge is a stunning four-story building that offers spectacular views of the lake. Construction began on this structure in 1911, and it took several years to complete. It was quite difficult to bring the supplies in up the steep and unpaved terrain, and the annual construction period was limited to 3 or 4 summer months when it wasn't snowing. The lengthy construction period and the expense to bring in the supplies drove up the construction costs. And the owner finally wanted to get the lodge open for business, so he used less expensive materials and left out many of the amenities. There were only a few shared bathrooms and electricity was run on a generator. But finally, in 1915, Crater Lake Lodge was completed on the very edge of Crater Lake in what is now called Rim Village. Doors opened on July 1st, 1915, and they initially charged $3 to $4 a night. It was a very popular destination and business was booming, even though there wasn't all of the high-class amenities of other hotels in bigger cities. The owner started an improvement project in 1922 to add an extra wing and additional amenities for the prestigious people who were staying at the lodge. Unfortunately, the owner's initial decision to rush the build and use lesser quality materials eventually started to impact the building. They chose wooden logs rather than the stone for the foundation. The logs rotted over time and the roof began to sag. As time passed, the building became unsafe and lacked the necessary safety requirements for the time, like fire escapes and sprinkler systems. In 1975, the plumbing system burst, contaminating the water and caused hundreds of people to get sick. During the 1980s, there was a heated debate over whether to renovate the lodge or just demolish it and start over. At the time, it would cost $5 million for a total renovation, and certain government entities didn't feel that it was worth it. Crater Lake Lodge was condemned in 1989, but historical advocates came to the rescue and convinced the government to save the lodge, and they received the funds to renovate it. A much safer Crater Lake Lodge has been open to guests since 1995. During the off-season, the lodge is surrounded with snow and houses a skeleton crew of maintenance employees and a site manager. One of the winter caretakers says, "It's not unlike the book and the movie The Shining, feeling so closed in by the snow during the winter months." And now it's currently open to guests between the end of May and the end of October. There are a few vague ghost stories associated with the lodge. The most common reports are a feeling of menacing presence watching the guests, making them feel uncomfortable and causing nightmares. Author Jeff Davis mentions this presence in 2 of his books, Weird Oregon and Ghosts, Critters, and Sacred Places of Oregon and Washington, Book 2. A couple staying on the third floor reported an ominous presence watching them as they slept. It bothered them so much they asked to move to a different room. In fact, reviews for the lodge report people waking up in the middle of the night in terror. One Google review said the guest had a night terror while staying there. And another Yelp review said the building had such an unsettling feeling they just couldn't sleep well. Beyond the stories of feeling a presence, there is one sole LA Times article from 2004 that hints at two hauntings in the lodge. And I'll link that article in the description box below. There is supposedly the ghost of a little girl roaming the guest room halls, and also reports of a Chinese man haunting the elevator. No other details are given, and no more could be found online. The lodge seems to be keeping a tight lid on ghost stories. However, it really might be to their advantage to advertise it because many people love to spend a night in a haunted hotel. It becomes an extra amenity that guests can experience. So if you've been watching my haunting videos, you know that I like to see if those legends about the hauntings have any fact behind them. Fact or fiction? Did a young girl die in the lodge and become a permanent guest roaming the halls of the lodge? Well, yes and no. On June 1st, 1937, 17-year-old Irma Thaley died when she was playing in the snow with her family by the lodge. She fell over the rim edge to her death. However, the lodge didn't open until July 1st that year, so she wasn't actually a guest at the hotel during the time of her death. But maybe the proximity to the lodge leads her inside to explore around. Fact or fiction? Is there a reason for a Chinese man to be haunting the elevator? Also, yes and no. I found a list of employees at the lodge, dated 1921, that did list a Fred Louis as a kitchen helper. Louis is a Chinese surname, and there are other newspaper clippings that refer to the number of Chinese staff employed at the lodge. So we know there were Chinese employees there, but there were no reports of any employee in particular dying in the building. In fact, in a Statesman Journal article, I learned that elevators were only added in 1994. So there were definitely no Chinese employees working in the elevator or died in the elevator prior to 1995 when the lodge was reopened to guests. So, did anyone at all die in the building? Well, yes. Mabel Richardson, wife of the winter caretaker, died in the lodge of an illness on October 21st, 1937. Could Mrs. Richardson be the source of the ominous presence in the hotel? That is unknown. But there are no other reports of deaths in the building. However, there has been no shortage of people accidentally falling to their deaths off the rim, and even stranger stories that are associated with the Crater Lake National Park. But we'll address that more in a video about the hauntings around Crater Lake.
At the very end of our hike up and down Garfield Peak Trail, you get this wonderful view of the Crater Lake Lodge as you're coming past the end of the trailhead. This is the building that first greets you. We decided to take a few minutes, look around the lodge, go inside, and look through the lobby as well. You can see here they're still taking really good care of the building after its renovation because they're replacing the roof right now. Many of the areas around the lodge were blocked off for safety so that roofing materials don't fall on guests and visitors. This is such a massive and impressive building. I'm so glad they decided to save it instead of demolish it. The lobby itself is not large, but you can see the impressive display of woodwork, stonework that date all the way back to 1915 when it opened. And here we're going down one of the hallways that takes you to the elevator, which is on the left, and also this little historical display showing pictures in the history of Crater Lake. And here's one set of elevators. Then there's another set of elevators right here. No Chinese man ghost, though. And that was the hallway and common area leading to the elevators, but now we pass by the entrance and the lobby desk again and enter into the Great Hall, which then leads to the restaurant. And again, you can see just the gorgeous woodwork, the warm and cozy atmosphere. And there's so much sunlight because you can see the sun coming in those windows. So these rooms are really bright and illuminated. Very crowded here today, lots of visitors, but it was the middle of the summer and peak tourist time. So we enjoyed our little stroll through the lobby and then went to go get lunch.
If you've visited the lodge and had a ghostly experience, I'd really love to hear about it. Do post about it in the comments below. So, if you're interested in visiting Crater Lake Lodge, it's located on the south side of the lake in Rim Village. You can enter the park from either the north or south entrance, depending on the direction you're traveling from. Crater Lake Lodge is open to the public. If you want to stay in a haunted hotel while you visit the lake, you can make a reservation during the summer to see if you experience any paranormal activity. If you're visiting just for the day, you can wander through the lobby as I did, or have drinks and appetizers in the Great Hall in the evening, but the restaurant itself is open only for hotel guests. Thank you so much for joining me today to learn about the haunted Crater Lake Lodge and its fascinating history. And don't forget, if you're interested in learning about the mysteries of the Pacific Northwest, of exploring fascinating locations and discovering local legends, please do subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell to receive an email when a new video is released. Thank you.